Welcome to the Small Giants Fishbowl. This topic is From Me to We, Creating a Culture of Leaders. Join Candice Gouge, Talent and Culture Cultivator at Pegasus Logistics, for a fishbowl discussion on the employee development tools she designed and implemented to create a culture of leaders, including individual development plans and multi-level leadership tracks for all employees. Okay, here we go.
Place of some leadership change, our executives level leadership change. The company was not doing so great. Made a bunch of changes, and one of the first things that we decided to do within all of this change was we needed to get our culture back. Our culture had eroded to the point of we had good people leading the company, and people just were kind of checked out. And so while we started thinking about what would engage people, what did we want to do with the culture, this whole idea of investing in people from the perspective of their development and their growth and having them have a career path at Pegasus and us supporting that was kind of one of the things we decided to focus on a lot. So what I'm going to do today is just walk you through just a couple of pieces of things that we're doing right now that we've implemented since, I think, 2 years ago. The first one that I want to walk through, and I think everyone got copies earlier, right, Julia? Okay. So the first one that I'm going to just talk through probably pretty quickly is this Pegasus employee development structure. So this document really is just a high level, this is kind of what we're doing at the company. We have the company broken down. So we have every employee broken down into a level. So it's either an all employee, and then we have levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And level 1 is a lead position. So right now we have 8 people in lead positions, and these are people who do not have direct reports. They're team leads though. So that work looks a little bit like a project manager, right? So they're responsible for things getting done on their team, but they don't really have that manager administrative responsibility, I should say. Level 2 is a supervisor or a manager who only has one level of employees. So they only have direct reports, they don't have an organization. Level 3 is a manager or a director who does have an organization under them. And the level 4 is executive level. Some of the offerings that we've outlined on this document. So we have a monthly learning topic, and our monthly learning topic this year, we choose a theme every year in January. We do a big kickoff meeting, and our theme this year is building A-teams. So building A-teams, I'll just give you the reference that we use. If you watch some sports teams and how they work together, one of the things we used some videos from the San Antonio Spurs, and they're very big on how those teams work together and how the interaction of the teams and the accountability, and that it's not always just the coach who's making calls or holding people accountable. All of those players each have a role. And so the idea here this year is we want all of our teams, we want our team as a whole to be an A team, but then we have teams within the company, right? Customer service and finance and international. We want them to all build A teams. So that's our theme. And the monthly learning topic, so every month we push out a piece of learning based on the concept of building an A-team. We started with the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and we introduced that content for the first couple of months, right? So this is how not to build an A-team. And then we moved into the speed of trust. And so every month now for the rest of the year, we're giving little pieces of the speed of trust, because the foundation of an A-team is trust. The individual development plan, I'm not going to dive into that too much because that's actually going to be our next main focus. So I'll skip over that for now. We have an online learning platform called lynda.com, which is actually transitioning over into LinkedIn Learning. So that's part of our programs and offerings. We have a next level leadership class, which is an 11-month class, and that's designed for, if you remember the grid, that's designed for the level 2 and level 3 leaders. So they have to have direct reports to be in that class. That class is made up of a couple different tracks. They're learning about the Pegasus business as a whole, so how we run our finance, how we manage our cash, what our sales process looks like, how we develop our customers. They're learning those pieces of it, but then on the other hand, they're also learning leadership topics like giving feedback and having tough conversations and developing themselves as a leader. We have leadership coaching. So the other great thing that I get to do here at the company is I'm a trained coach. So anyone who goes through some of the leadership development, they have the option to have coaching. We don't typically say people have to have coaching, but we do have a nice amount of people who do take advantage of that. We have a level 1 leadership program, which level 1 is really for that group of leads that I just told you about. They don't have direct reports, but it's like their first toe dip into the water of being in a leadership position. And there's a lot to learn when you do that, right? There's, you know, your team now looks at you a little bit different when you're named a lead. And your friendships change, and they don't talk to you in the hall anymore and tell you secrets and how you carry yourself. We even talk about social media presence in that class. And then the last thing I have on there is the new hire onboarding and orientation. So we put this into place a couple years ago. Every single new hire who comes through our company goes through a 1-week like a training program, but what it does is it exposes them to every single department within the company for a set amount of time so that they have the big picture overview of what every team does, so that when they move on to their specific training for their department, they can sit down and they kind of have this perspective of how they fit into the company and how the work they do contributes to everyone else. I made myself a note on here. We just kind of talked the other day about adding a new thing on here that next year we're going to do is we have a lot of stuff in here, right? We have all employees and then we have leadership stuff. What we're missing and what we're going to start working on is if I am a desk level employee and someday I have desires to be a leader, what training do I need to take? What steps do I need to do? Are there some classes that I can take? So we're going to design something that's a stepping into leadership, right? So an employee might raise their hand and say, I have an interest in being a leader someday. What do? We're going to have a track offering for them so that this kind of eventually becomes a prerequisite to being considered for a promotion. You have had to have had this piece of training. So that is one thing that I have added on there. I'm going to pause for a minute because I just spewed out a whole bunch of stuff on one document and check for questions. And I can't see all the screens of everyone. So if anyone's raising their hand on page 2, I won't see it. I don't think, unless I scroll through here. No questions, I don't think?
Yep, and just a reminder, you can also submit your questions through the chat feature.
Yeah, okay. And I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I will jump over now to our next document in order, which is the development track. So that document came over, it does not have a title on it, I apologize, it was just named. And it's the spreadsheet that has a whole bunch of colors if you guys are looking at it. So this document, this is, I almost didn't share this because it's not a perfect document, right? It's kind of like our work in progress, and I actually tweak it probably once a week, right? I add something or I check mark something else or I move something around. But the idea here is it's really fleshing out so that we have a roadmap to the content. So the first document just said we've got these levels. This document is the actual content. It's also how I'm keeping track of where we're getting the content. So you'll notice there's a column that says content source, and some of it says bridge, some of it says internal, there's some that say books. So we're kind of pulling things from all different places. And when you see bridge on there, that's an LMS that we actually just implemented this year. So some of the content that we actually get comes from the bridge. That platform, they provided some materials that we can go in there and kind of tweak and make our own. So that's what that means. The other thing that you see on here is the delivery method. So are they taking it on the LMS? Is it live classroom training, or are we sending them off-site? Not sure there's a lot of other things for me to introduce here. It was just an idea of how you can kind of break out, you know, who gets what content. And we are not perfect on this just yet. Some people in other levels are getting content from other levels because we're still in the process of getting it, you know, completely set up and organized. So let me pause for 1 second, check for questions.
Yeah, I had a question about that.
Okay.
So you've got an awful lot of options listed for people at each level, which is awesome. What kind of guidance do people have on where they should focus their energy next? Is that primarily working with their boss, or do you have some other kind of ways to help people make that decision?
Good question. Many of these are actual tracks, right, that we enroll them in based on their position. So for example, you know, that very first one, the yellow section, that's all employees, and it's kind of not optional. That all employees have to go through this training. The green one, which is the level 1, that's a lead, that's a track. So when you're put into a lead position, you are enrolled in that track. You automatically take those classes.
Cool.
Next level leadership is just a little bit different. It's not a mandatory thing. We actually, those are nominated every year by the leadership group. I take that list of nominees, and I actually interview every one of those people and talk to them about the time commitment for that class. Because it's not just in-person training. We actually read books together throughout the year as well. And they do weekly homework online, discussions with each other. So it's quite a bit of a time commitment. So they're interviewed for their readiness and their commitment to that class. I know once they agree and once I feel comfortable that they are going to commit the time, they're enrolled in that class. So there's the thing that they get to choose, the stuff that they get to do extra if they're not enrolled in something is, it kind of falls into play with the IDP, is where they choose what they want to learn. And they can also choose other stuff that they do outside of any of this structure. They just do it because they want to do it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. That helps a lot.
You're welcome. Any other ones? I don't see any. All right, I am going to dive into the IDP. So the IDP document that you guys got, you got 2 things. You got a PDF document, which was kind of our process document, and you got the planning worksheet. So if you haven't heard of an IDP in the past, I hadn't heard of it actually, to be honest with you, a couple of years ago. It's an individual development plan, and this is a way for an employee to work with their manager to decide what they want to do for the upcoming year. What we do here at Pegasus is we require every single employee, including the leadership team, to do an IDP every year. The reason for that is we are very much a learning company, and we want everyone focused on growth. So when we interview people, we talk about this, and we explain to them, and we actually interview and ask interview questions related to if they are a learner, right? That's kind of part of our criteria, is we want people who are learners. And then the IDP helps support that learning, so it just keeps them going. So to answer, you know, to weave in some of your question, Carl, this is where they actually choose their specific learning, not related to a track that we're going to put them on already. So before I jump into the process for what we do this year, I will tell you that last year was the first year we did it, and we learned a couple of lessons really quick. The first lesson was we made a 1-pager sheet that was the IDP, and it just said, what are you going to learn, how are you going to learn it, and when are you going to do it by? And we thought, this is awesome. We're going to send it out to everybody and have them fill it out. Then I held training meetings with the managers of all the departments and explained it to them. Here's what you do. You sit down with your employees, you have a discussion, and you have them fill the form out, you send the form to me. The idea was that the managers would explain to their teams exactly how to do this. And what we found out, you know, as we went through that process last year was managers are not super great trainers. And the information, you know, just like the game telephone, the information didn't get all the way down the line that it was supposed to, or the way it was supposed to. So we had a lot of people who filled these things out and they didn't even understand what they were supposed to do with them. So what we did this year was We beefed up the process. We gave it a lot more meat. We made it, we gave more explanation. We created this document we're going to talk about. And then we had training classes. I think it took us 2 weeks, but we had 3 or 4 classes every single day. And we in person trained every single employee how to do their own IDP. So we kind of took that responsibility out of the actual leader's hands, and we trained the employees. So that worked out a lot better. We got a lot nicer IDPs this year because people kind of knew what they were doing. The other thing that we didn't have in the very first year was we didn't have any kind of accountability, really. We said, okay, by January 30th, we want them all turned in. I had a spreadsheet. I was checking the spreadsheet off, and probably somewhere in mid-February, they were all done. And for the rest of the year, we never talked about it again. Oh, hang on one second. My computer is telling me to update Windows. Okay. So for the rest of the year, we never checked on them again. So at the end of the year, how'd you do on your IDPs? What IDPs? So no one followed up on them. So the way that we improved the process this year was, number one, we created this handbook. And in true Small Giants fashion, this is not all my work. I found a lot of stuff online. Google is my best friend. And I actually found a bunch of different pieces of content from a bunch of different companies that I kind of took little pieces of it, added some of our Pegasus stuff, put our spin to it, and made it so that it fit our company. And that's how we came up with this document. So this document really is telling the employees exactly why would you use an IDP. And the other thing we rolled in there, if you guys have already kind of scanned through that, is we added in the whole goal setting piece. So what good is it to choose what you're going to learn if you don't know why you're going to learn it, right? Like, where are you taking this learning? So we walked them through goals and setting SMART goals, and we gave them a goal worksheet, and we asked everyone, set a couple of goals before you look at your IDP worksheet so that your IDP worksheet can follow your goals. And then the other thing we did is, if you notice on the planning sheet, so that's this form that has where people can do their filling out, we had them carry those goals over, right? So the short-term goals and the long-term goals. That way, as the leader, I can look at your form and I can see what it is you want to do, right? I want to go into leadership, or I want to transfer into IT, or I want to be a salesperson. And we can talk through what you're going to learn and how you can start setting yourself up for those goals. Now, some people do put on here personal goals and IDPs that sometimes are more personally spun. We don't discourage that, right? So it all kind of fits together. This is life, right? There's no work-life balance anymore. It's all one thing. So we are totally good with people putting on there that when they want to lose weight, or they want to run 5K, or they want to buy a house. That's great too. I thought I just saw a chat pop up. Is that a question? No. Any questions on this IDP so far? There's a lot of stuff in this one.
We share the document on the chat feature there, so you guys can refer to it.
Oh, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then I'm going to just keep going if you guys don't have more questions. Along with, I said one of those lessons was accountability, right? So we didn't have any accountability last year. One of the other things we did this year was we rolled in some accountability. We rolled in 2 separate pieces, actually. We created a one-on-one form. So we require all of our managers, all of our leaders to have one-on-ones with their employees. Sometimes they do them once a week, sometimes they do them twice a month, and sometimes they do them once a month, but as long as they have some kind of a regular cadence set up to check in with their employees. We played around for quite a while, actually, and came up with this template that you guys should have a copy of. It's the 1-2-1 form. And on that form, you will notice at the bottom that there is a section for an IDP check-in. And so the idea there is, at the beginning of the year, once you decide your IDPs, you put those IDPs on there once and they stay on there all year. And when you have your one-on-one with your manager, as you're going through the template and your discussion, you actually check in on those IDPs. How are they going? Are you having any problems? What's your progress look like? Oh, you had a due date. Did you make your due date? You know, what are you learning? Do we need to tweak them? So that they're keeping track of them. The other thing we did was we modified our mid-year reviews this year. So we do a June review and we do an end of the year review. This is HR work, right? And on the reviews, they changed them and they added the IDP check-in into the review. So they're actually graded, not graded because we don't do grades, but they're actually, the part of their, you know, how well they're doing, the IDP progress is taken into consideration. And I didn't give you guys a copy of that. Stopping for questions. I feel like I get talking on a roll and I just go. Nothing? You guys are easy. All right. So the IDP planning sheet. We have, I think we have like 220-ish employees. And so that's spread out. Our primary office here in Dallas, we've got 180, yeah, about 180. And then the rest of them are scattered out throughout the country with a few international locations. Okay. On the planning worksheet, so I'll just kind of review this planning worksheet a little bit. You'll notice on the first page, the employee themselves goes in there and just puts some stuff on there, right? That helps show where they've been and where they're going, right? So where am I right now? What role am I on? Oh, that's a good question. The how many direct reports per manager is, that varies, right? So there's some people that just have a couple, and we have some managers that have 15. Yeah, too many. We're actually, that's something that we're working on, is trying to kind of spread that out a little bit, because we do have some managers who are a little bit overloaded. So where am I now is one of the first questions you put. So what team are you on and where have I been? So some people kind of do self-interpretation here right now, and they will come up with all kinds of great stuff. I've seen some really funny ones, but even where have I been, they even put on their past positions at other companies, because as the leader looks at this, they want the leader to know, here are my goals and here's some past experience I already have that you may not know about. So they really kind of get into filling that out. And then where do I want to be, right? So we have a lot of conversation around where do I want to be. There are some employees who like exactly where they are today. And I really don't want anyone to feel like I'm giving you an IDP and you have to change positions, or you have to want to be in leadership. You know, you have to want to do something else. Some people, it's totally okay if you want to stay on your team. And we still want you learning and growing, even if you're going to stay right where you are. So that is a big part of the training that we have, and we have that conversation of where do I want to be. The goal sheet, right? So they get to pull their goals over from their goal worksheet and put them onto this form. And then the self-assessment, this is always a fun section, right? Like, what am I good at and what do I need to grow at? And then the manager's assessment. So the manager gets to go on there and take a look at, okay, here's where they are, here's where they want to go. Based on that, let me tell you some things that you're already really good at doing, and some things that you could think about on your IDP as opportunities for growth. So then on page 2 of the IDP form, we give them 5 IDPs. What I typically tell people is balance that out. 3 or so is a good number. If you're picking really easy things, like say, I want to take beginning Excel, and I want to take beginning Word, and I want to take beginning PowerPoint. Those are pretty basic classes. Maybe choose 4, or maybe even choose 5. We have some people who are going to take next level leadership, and so that's an 11-month program, which is a huge commitment. Maybe only take 2 if you're doing something that big. So we ask them to balance that out a little bit. So while there's space for 5, they don't have to take all 5. You will notice on that first line item there, you've got method of learning. So there's lynda.com, there's cross training, there's mentoring and coaching, and then there's other. So lynda.com, I'll just touch on this a little bit. I don't know how many of you guys have already heard of lynda.com, but it's an online learning platform, and they have videos, and they have, I want to say they have 8,000 or 9,000 plus videos on every topic you could possibly think of. I've never looked on there, and I've never not found what I was looking for. They even have SAT prep courses for high school students, and they have math. They have stuff for teachers, photography, they have acting, and they have Microsoft, PowerPoint, Word, project management. Their project management courses are actually certified by PMI. So we give every single employee in our company a license, and they get unlimited access to lynda.com. They can use their smartphone, they can do it after hours. And when I pull the reports every month, it's always fun to look at the classes that they were taking. If you remember earlier, I said some of it they just get to choose, and they just take what they want to take. It's not even on their IDP. People take all those fun classes, right? I see photography, I see customer service people taking computer programming classes. They take all kinds of stuff on there. Cross-training. So cross-training is, this is basically, if I'm in operations and I want to learn customer service, we let them set their cross-training up. Or if I want to learn the accounting functions, I can set cross-training up. That's what cross-training is just interdepartmental. Mentor coaching. So if they want to have a mentor or work with a coach, they come to me. I either match them with a mentor based on what it is they want to learn, and I kind of follow them through their mentorship, or I coach them, right? It just depends on what it is they want. And then other, so we do have some employees who take outside training. We have some employees who go, they want to learn a certain skill, and it's an in-person class, and they found it at a university, or they want to go attend a seminar or something like that. So that's the other. Then they commit to what is it exactly that they're going to learn, and when are they going to learn it by. So the rest of that becomes pretty simple. And I see a couple of questions popping here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have a question from Carl, Candice, and it's,
yes.
Do you synchronize pay raises with evaluations?
Yes, we do. Yes. That's why the IDP process was actually rolled into that. So right here.
Yeah, the reason I ask is simply because there's a lot of debate in industry these days about is that a good idea, because that changes the nature of the performance discussion a bit, and there's debates about whether that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we do is we do all of the mid-year reviews and midterm reviews are done in June, and then pay raises are calculated in July. And the way that the pay raises are calculated is there's a cap. I think it's, you do a percentage, you have this percentage for your team. And based on the performance of each person, you can shuffle those around, right? Like this person might be doing a bang up job, and so I'm going to give them 4%. And this person is really not doing so good, so I'm going to give them 1%. And you can balance those out, right? And so the evaluations and the work that they're doing and the progress that they're making is taken into consideration. Now, we don't do them at the same time, right? We do them a month apart.
Okay.
Any other questions? How are we doing on time? Oh my gosh, it's only 12:30 or 1:30, depending on where you are. I think I ran through all my documents already. I did. All right. What else you guys want to know? I talk too fast. What did I not cover?
So this is Carl again.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know where does the input come from for what to put on the list as far as learning opportunities and stuff like that? Because you've got a large enough business and diverse enough now that I imagine you can't feel like you've got it all in your head anymore, but you require significant input from managers and employees all over the company.
So are you asking about specific content?
Yeah, you know, how do you decide what content to put on the list for next year, for instance?
Gotcha. Well, there's a couple things. Some of it is, now, to be clear, we are only really 2 years into doing all this. So a lot of employees have not gotten a lot of this, right? So it's in piecemeal. So we have a long way until we're all the way caught up. But we have a couple of different training programs that we work with here that different people in the leadership team and myself have taken part in. We take a lot of that stuff with us, right? And we say, okay, we really liked this content. This applies to, you know, these people in this department, or, you know, I just learned this. This would be a good thing to add into this learning track. So that's like leadership development type stuff. Is a lot of it, to be honest with you, has been experimenting, right? We came up last year, the first year we did Next Level Leadership, which is that 11-month program. You know, I came up with this whole outline. This is how we're going to do it. This is the content we're going to use. These are the books we're going to read. And even throughout the year, as we went along and as I learned more about those people and as they developed, we tweaked different things, you know. And even at the end of the year, when I had them give me feedback on the course overall, I made some tweaks based on their feedback. You know, we dropped a book and we added a different book because they didn't really like the book we had. And so it's a little bit of experimenting with what you think your people know. And then on the other hand, you know, we have business specific stuff that they have to know it, right? We're working right now on forklift certification, right? Forklift certification has been done old school at our company for 20 something years. And so we are actually going to put that online, and certain people are going to have to go through that, and warehouse safety and things like that. So there's some business related things that we just keep rolling in there because every single employee has to have it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You have a few more questions, Candice. So
yep,
the
I'm
next
looking
one is,
right now.
Yep. Do you have structured courses within the building, and who is instructing those?
Yeah. So within some of the stuff we do, right? So in these learning courses, anywhere where it says there's a live course or a classroom training, most of those I lead, but we do have guest speakers, right? So we have Lance does our cash management class, and our director of sales does our business development class, and our director of solutioning does the solutioning class. So we have all the subject matter experts help with teaching topics. And then sometimes we bring in outside speakers. We have someone coming in 2 weeks who's going to teach emotional intelligence, which is part of our leadership track. We've had guest speakers who have taught meditation and mindfulness. So some of it is internal, taught, you know, by myself and some other people, and then some of it we get people to speak from outside. Some of the topics that we have covered under building A teams, absolutely. So for building A teams, you know, we rolled that out, and the first thing we did was we just rolled out a message that just explained what the heck do we mean when we say A teams, right? And we kind of explained these are the characteristics, this is why it's important, this is what makes it so great. And we attached a video of the San Antonio Spurs playing. And then we pointed out, you know, here's some of the things that they did that were so great and why we are aspiring to be a team like this. And then we started with the 5 dysfunctions of a team, which is Patrick Lencioni. I think we talked about that in May, didn't we? Or somebody did. We started with that book, and we didn't have the whole company read the whole book. We picked out, like, we reviewed each of those dysfunctions and kind of gave them the Cliff Notes version and created that into like a little mini training course. So each one of these mini training courses every month, it probably takes people 10 minutes to go through, maybe even less. We just want to give it to them in pieces. So we did the 5 dysfunctions, and the idea there was, this is not an A-team. We need you to know what an A-team is not so that we can show you what an A-team is. We started there. We pointed out that the foundation of that 5 dysfunctions, or the foundation of a functional team, is trust. So we transitioned in April or May into the Speed of Trust, which is a Covey book. And we're going through Speed of Trust. And what we're doing in Speed of Trust is we've just taken all of those chapters and we've broken it down by month. And we're just doing, again, Cliff Notes version of each chapter. Like, these are the things, this is how you build. It goes from self-trust to, now my brain is drawing a blank. Self-trust, relationship trust, societal trust, market trust. So it builds out all these different ways, to build trust. And so we're working our way through that. So really, we've just taken a book and we've broken the book down into little small bites. And then I put it into the LMS. I attach a couple of good pictures and I create a test at the end and they're done with it. So I hope that answers that question. Oh, yeah. That's the other. I'm so glad Lance is here to remind me. We also ask all the managers to, every month when we put that learning topic out, we ask the managers to lead a conversation as part of their team meeting that month. So it could be 5 or 10 minutes of, let's talk about the topic that just came out and go back over it. So not only are they learning it online by themselves, but then they're having a group discussion to review it.
Hey, Candice.
Yeah.
You have a much larger company than I do. I've got 6 employees. And so I am the HR department, the founder, the training and development manager. I sit at the front desk every once in a while, so it's, I would love to have as much, a robust program as you do. Thinking about a smaller team like ours, where would you start? Like, what's the 1 or 2 things you do out of all the stuff that you've tried so far, for a single team? What would you start with?
I would start with, what do you need them to do, right? Like, do they need to grow your business? Do you need them to step up and lead more? Do they need to have a skill set specific to the work that you're trying to do? First it would be kind of an assessment of what is it that we need exactly. And then the cool thing, I would say almost to anybody is do an IDP with them, right? Have them go through the process of, right, where are you, where do you want to go, and what do you want to learn? And then in hand with that assessment that you've done of, okay, we need to, as a company, this is where we're going, you can kind of blend that. So I'm not sure that I iterated it enough, but that page 2 of the IDP is not done alone. The manager and the employee, they do it together. So that way they can look at that page 1, look at the goals, look at the strengths and the areas of opportunity for growth, and they can decide together what they want to learn for the rest of the year. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? That's the easiest way to get people learning.
Yeah, thank you.
Here we go. I see a question from Christy. I like how you embrace experimentation. Oh, thank God, because that's all I ever do. What are some things you found that definitely did not work? Oh gosh, what did not work? One of the things that did not work was when we first started doing our monthly training, our monthly learning topics, I sent them out via email because the LMS was not implemented yet. So I had no way of knowing if they did them or not. And what we found as we started going around talking to people was they weren't reading the email. So that did not work. Email as training does not work. Anything come to the top of your head that did not work? I'm sure I could think of a bunch of stuff. Let me think about that as we're talking about the other things, and maybe some other stuff will come up.
We're trying to build an accountability, and who's responsible for the training? Really the employee.
That's true. That's true. So a good point here that Lance makes is there's this concept of learning, right? 70-20-10, right? And that 70% of learning is owned by the employee. You own your learning. You decide and you manage yourself when it comes to the learning. And then 20% of that is the company makes the learning available. So really what I'm talking about here is this is 20%. And then 10%, the company teaches it. It's your writing.
Yeah, yes.
20% of it the company teaches. So we actually like have, you have to come to this training. So there's that little breakdown there of who owns what, and we're trying to use that. This IDP kind of drives some of that accountability.
And Candice, Stephanie was going to speak to her personal experience about a small team, so we'd love to hear.
Oh, good.
Quick. Yeah.
Yeah, please, Stephanie, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I've never done one of these before, so I don't know if you can see or hear me.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. I was just going to answer the question about having a small team because we have about 12 employees, and so I thought I could share the experience from this year because we started something pretty similar. We call them professional development plans, but the way that I did it in managing with a small team, I came up with 5 questions that I thought would help kind of frame people's thinking, both the managers and the team. And I did training with the managers first on why I wanted to do this and how I thought it would be valuable for them and their team and the company. But the questions that I asked were, what new skill or knowledge would give you the greatest personal or professional satisfaction if you accomplished it by the end of the year? Would you feel, what would make you feel good? I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
No, you're good. Keep going.
Okay, sorry. My phone was talking to me, I guess. Then the second thing I asked was what value that knowledge would bring to our customers and to the company, because I wanted people to think a little bit, stretch themselves a little bit, and not just, oh, it'd be nice if I knew this, but really try to kind of put a little bit more effort into, like, this is how this is going to benefit our customers or our company. Obviously, I had a little bit of an ulterior motive with that, because if we were going to spend money on it, I wanted them to justify why it was going to be valuable. And then I asked them how much they thought the company should invest in the training and how much time they were willing to invest. And again, this was kind of to get them thinking and for my own assessment, because if somebody told me, they were willing to invest 5 hours over the course of the year, then in my mind, that's fine if that's the level of commitment that you have to it, but I'm not going to spend $5,000 on you if you're only willing to spend 5 hours on yourself. So it was a little bit of a gauge that we used, to decide how much we were going to invest. We kind of had in our head a budget, but I really wanted to get a feel for, like, and we try to hire for people that seek, continuous improvement and development. I mean, we are an education company, so it's very important for us, but, some people are not willing to spend that much time on it. And so I wanted to see, and I didn't want to push the people too hard that were like, this is just not that important to me, or I'm too busy. So for me, I felt like it was important our first time to get an idea of how committed they were to this program by asking them. So we did that, and we filled out, they filled out their answers to those questions with their manager, and then I reviewed everybody's plans, and we kind of finalized them, and then we scheduled quarterly check-ins with the manager for each team member to say, how are you doing? And we also had them at the beginning of the year go ahead and pick out all the courses that they were going to do. So we use Linda as well, and then there's also some other associations and societies that we're part of. And so when they created this is what I want to learn, they also went ahead and said, and these are the courses I'm going to do and when I'm going to do them. And so at the quarterly check-in, it's pretty straightforward. Is that did you do the course that you said you were going to do or not? And then we also, at our big team meeting that we do quarterly with everybody, we put them up on the screen and we highlight everybody's accomplishments. So, again, this kind of has that accountability, and it also, like, we had somebody that completed his Google Analytics certification. He was really proud of that. So it was cool to be able to see and show in the meeting, like, oh, look, he's accomplished this. He got it, almost 100% on his test, and so it's kind of a nice way to highlight that accomplishment. So that was kind of a long answer, but I just thought I'd give some detail about how we went about doing it, and maybe starting in a smaller, manageable way. I love all these Pegasus documents. I think are really helpful. But maybe that, some pieces of what I went over might be helpful for the smaller organizations, or if you want to get started on like a manageable way that you can handle it and then grow the program from there.
I really like those questions that you ask. So the creator in my mind is like, how can I put those on next year's IDP? Those are good questions. I'm sure that'd be great if you would share those with everyone, because those are really good for inducing thought.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. I think Mark had a question. I don't know if you still have it. You'd like to share?
Yeah. How do you manage employee development towards company values, work environment, and expected behavior? So the IDP appears to focus predominantly on function skills. Yes, absolutely. As far as the training specifically, so from a training perspective, during that 1 week of new hire training, and then during the orientation, which I didn't touch on a whole lot, the core values and the mission statement are not only talked about, but there's exercises around them where they have to, there's fun things that they do to kind of get a feel for what our core values mean and what the behaviors look like. So we send them, out on these fun adventures during that experience, I guess I would say. And then some of the other stuff that we do is we do a lot of recognition around our core values and around the behaviors. So we give high five awards, which we have 5 core values. So we have, it's peer-to-peer recognition, and you recognize people for, doing really great things, and you have to choose on that which core value that aligns to. So that kind of keeps that whole core value thing front and center. Every month we give a Culture Spotlight Award. So it's called our Ed Cahaley Culture Spotlight Award. And it's named after someone who is no longer with us, but who was our culture. And, every single thing that he did was exemplified our culture. So that's an award that's highlighted at the end of the year. There's of the year, right? So of the 12 people that won every month, we choose one for the year. We are in the process right now of, we've had these core values for a long time. I would say we've probably had them 15 to 18 years or so. We've had this set of core values that were put together by the leadership team way back when. And they're very simple statements. And what we're finding is very simple statements can be left open to interpretation depending on the person. So we are right now, we've been working on what do the behaviors exactly look like? Because you could go ask someone, one of our core values is the difference is fun. And you can go ask 5 different people, what does that mean? And you get 5 wildly different ideas, but they all kind of align to what it means. But we really want to put some more definition around that. So we are working on right now, really getting in and defining what exactly those behaviors look like. And then the last thing we do related to the culture, core values, and engagement is we do best places to work contest every year. And so that's a survey that goes out to the employees, and it measures employee engagement. And
How are we choosing the cool people?
oh yeah. So for that best places, so we won it again this year, which was awesome. And we at the awards ceremony, we have 8 seats, right? And so we're going to send specific people for 4 of the seats, and we have 4 seats that are open. And so we're going to create a contest for the 4 seats that are open. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask employees to enter the contest. You have to define the behaviors of the core values. So we were originally going to send out a survey and say, hey guys, we're trying to define the core values. Will you fill this form out? And we're going to kind of take that and we're going to make it a little bit fun. And we're going to get people to do this as a contest, which, it's a little bit self-serving. We get to have people help us with this exercise, and they'll get to win prizes based on the ones that we pick. They'll get to go to this really cool function that they're having here locally.
Thanks, Candice.
Few more questions.
Yeah, there's another one here that was a little bit earlier on that, and it's, can you share some of the business results of these activities? Are there metrics in place as a result of these activities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is, are there metrics in place as a result of all the things that we've done? And it's funny because Lance and I were just talking about this yesterday. Like putting down, what's the ROI in investing in our people? And, one of the, I don't have exact numbers. I can't tell you exact numbers because we're just kind of starting to work on this piece of it because we kind of know it's important, but we don't have the numbers, right? You can look at the tie of, culture drives your employee engagement, and your employee engagement is really tied directly to your revenues. And so we're kind of working through how we put those numbers out and how we prove it out. One of our measures is, hello? Yes, heard somebody talking there. One of our measures is the best places to work score, right? So we've done that survey for many, many years, and every year we get back this engagement score. And so we look at that score and we kind of use that also as a benchmark of, okay, we got this score, now we don't want to go under it. This is kind of part of that measurement because it's employee engagement. So I'm sorry I don't have like a hard, definite answer there for you. We've been so busy working on all these things, we haven't done the money side.
Okay, well that's it for this one. Check out more Fishbowls exclusively for the Small Giants community at smallgiants.org.